All right, we're going to call together to our first meeting of the evening. This is the application of Mark and Jacqueline Diani. Did I pronounce that properly? Oh, that's you. I'm sorry. Did I pronounce it right? Diani. Okay, great, Diani. The application is dated September 12, 2016, and the applicant is seeking a variance from Section 61 of the bylaw. The applicant has a deck which she wants to alter and extend so that it's going to be 10 feet 6 inches by 18 feet 7 inches at the rear of her single-family home at 29 Governors Road in Milton. The present deck was granted by apparently a variance in case number 1933 back in May of 2002, which located the deck, the existing deck, 18 feet 8 inches from the rear lot line. Here the applicant is proposing that the new deck would be set back 20 feet 4 inches from the rear property line when the applicable bylaw, section 61, requires that new portions of buildings or decks be set back a minimum distance of 25 feet from the rear property line. This property is located in a residency zoning district. So I've basically read the advertisement of this hearing. As evidence at the hearing, we have the application, which is dated September 12, 2016. We have a July 21, 2016 denial letter from our building inspector, Joseph Prondak. We have a series of plans showing the proposed deck in multiple sheets. And we have a plot plan of the subject property. It's prepared by Stephen J. Doyle. The plot plan is dated, well, April 16, 2002. That must be the original plot plan, and there must be something superimposed over that. Maybe there's another plot plan in here. Nope, we're going with the original plot plan, apparently. So we'll have all of those documents marked as evidence at the hearing. I don't think we've received any letters regarding this application. So the rules of the board are such that we'll hear from the applicant. Why don't you swing right over there, Mrs. Gianni, in front of the microphone. You can maybe pull it over in front of you so that everything you said will be recorded for posterity. First we'll hear the applicant, and then we'll hear any persons present who wish to speak in support of the application or have questions of the applicant, and then we'll hear from any person present who wishes to speak in opposition to the present application. We're tape recording the proceedings this evening, and they're also being televised on tape, so that we'd ask that before anyone speaks, tell us your name and address, speak up nice and clear and loud so we'll have an accurate record of the proceeding. If we have to revert to the tape recording in order to prepare the decision. See, you're Jacqueline Diani.
Jackie, yes.
Jackie, okay, great. Welcome to the Board of Appeals. Why don't you tell us about your application and why the board should allow this application for variance?
Thank you for letting me come. What you read is exactly what we want to do. It's a small lot, small backyard.
How small is the lot? Ballpark. Do you remember? 5,000 square feet or something like that?
55.
Okay.
Thank you. And we wanted to pull the deck in a little bit to give our son some more room in the back for playing. And so we wanted to move the deck over to the side, which is really like dead space. It's kind of off to the side, so that's kind of how we thought, we could do both, is give us it's a really small deck. It's like the size of this table. And
Do you know what the size of the existing deck is? Can you ballpark that for me?
I don't. I thought all the papers were here. I didn't know.
It shows the existing deck,
Okay.
I suppose.
Says it here.
Okay, it's 12 feet 4 inches by 14 feet 7. Actually, it looks...
No, wait a second. It's extend the existing 12.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks small on the drawing, but it's reasonably sized.
Yeah. For a table for 4 people, it feels tight.
Okay.
So we just, we wanted to pull it in, give us a little bit more room in the, in the backyard and extend the deck sideways to give us room in that direction, so kind of to reconfigure it, I guess. So knowing, that the setbacks, that the existing deck is over it as well, and the new deck would be as well. We put in the application, it was denied, and appealed it to see if we could move forward.
Okay. And you say you wanted to provide for more room for your son, did you?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay,
just
how old's your son? What is he?
13,
You say 13?
13. yeah.
13 years old, okay. And he plays in the backyard a lot.
Yeah,
Did you have an opportunity to show the plans for your proposed deck to some of your neighbors?
I didn't show him the plans. I spoke to the Croftwells, who were on the side where the deck would, be going in that direction.
So are they on the right-hand
Yep,
side
they're
as
on the
you're looking
right,
from the street?
exactly, yep.
And they're
And
the
then the
Croftwells.
Clearys, who are directly behind us, we've spoke to them about it. And then the Mitchells, who are to the left of, well, if you're facing our house,
Yes,
to the left.
facing the house, yep.
They can't see the deck, but we spoke to them. So those 3 people we spoke to.
Okay.
I didn't show them the plan, but we told them what we were hoping to do.
And so we're waiting in great suspense.
Oh,
For you
sorry.
to tell us
Yeah,
what they had to say.
Sorry. They said, no problem.
Okay, so they assent to your application for a
Yeah,
variance?
yeah, we
Okay.
told them what we were doing, and they said, yeah, no problem.
They thought it was good for you and good for your house and
One,
good for the neighborhood?
one of them said, we're surprised you didn't have a bigger deck from the get-go. So,
Great, and not to be overly technical,
yeah.
is the deck going to be mahogany, or is it going to be
Wood,
wood deck, or is it one of these
No, not the, I know,
durable
Not-
substances
no,
that
we
aren't
were
wood?
just gonna do a regular wood deck.
Same height as
just-
the existing deck?
Yep.
How high is your existing deck? 5 feet, 6 feet, something like that?
I'm gonna
4
say
feet?
about 6 feet, because it's taller than me.
All right.
About, about that, maybe a
You're
little
going
bit
to have
taller than me.
railings around it?
Yes, yep, with
And have-
railings, yes.
You're going to have storage under it?
We don't, it's open underneath, we don't store things because there's, a walk down to the, not walk down, but kind of steps down to the basement, so there is space under it, we don't use
You're not going to
them.
lattice it off or anything like that?
We have, facing the neighbors behind us, we have kind of a lattice, but it's open on one side,
Okay.
yeah.
You're going to paint the deck or leave it natural?
We'll stain it.
Okay, you're going to stain it
st-
consistent with
yeah.
the color of the house?
The
What color is your house?
The house we painted green,
Green.
so I think we just use stain, that's what we've been using, yeah,
Okay, some type of a wood stain?
yeah.
Okay.
And I should have said at the beginning, the builder was coming tonight and his car overheated, so he called me at 6:30, so he would have answered all of your questions.
That is called a very unfortunate
Yes,
circumstance.
yes.
Well, you're doing very well for being
Thank you,
put in
so,
distress
yeah.
by the builder and his inoperable automobile. Let me, do you have anything else you'd like to add? You don't have to.
No, I was just trying to think for a minute.
Let's do this.
okay.
Let me ask my colleagues if they have any questions.
Sure.
And they may prompt you into
Sure.
saying something else if you want to. Mr. Jeffrey Mullen.
So the plans I find a little bit confusing to follow. If you go down your driveway,
Yeah.
your house has maybe like a little mud porch in the back? And that's how you get into the building? And what is the little extension of your house?
Yeah, that's an office,
Okay,
yeah.
so, and then the deck is tucked into the office there on the other side of the office. So if you're standing in the driveway, you can't see the deck.
Right.
Right.
So it's tucked in, you're right, between the office and then off the back side of the house where our kitchen is, yeah.
And you can access the deck from the yard,
Yes,
and you can access the deck from the house?
yes, yes.
And is that how you get into the house?
Sometimes,
But there's a separate entrance?
yeah, yes, there's a separate entrance.
Okay. And there
you-
will be a separate entrance when you finish?
Into the house,
Yeah.
from the deck
From the deck and from the yard?
and from the front yard.
From the front yard?
Yeah.
But what about the rear?
Well, we only have the door off the deck and the down to the basement, that's it.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
there's no additional entrance.
So right now,
Yeah.
the deck is 12 by 14 about,
Yeah.
and it's going to be 10 by 18. So it's going to be a little bit narrow, you said, to get your
Yeah.
backyard a little bit bigger,
Yeah,
but
give-
a little bit longer. So but it's not going to go the full length of the house?
No.
Not quite?
No,
Okay. All right, so it's really a small, it'll be more rectangular than it
Yes.
is now. Now it's
Yes.
kind of square,
yes,
although not perfectly square.
yes.
Okay,
Yes, exactly.
thank you.
Yes. yeah.
Okay, no, I don't have any further, I have a procedural question for when we deliberate, but I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Mr. Daba, please.
To expand, would I be able to show her the plan and ask?
course.
Okay.
Of course you can.
I was a little bit confused by
Okay.
the other
Oh,
plans,
yeah,
too.
okay.
So, this is the existing
Yeah.
deck, that's the office you were
Yeah.
talking about? Okay. So am I correct that if you cut off, it'll be closer to the house,
Yeah.
about 2 feet, and then it will go, what, to about the
Yeah,
end of the
so
house
I'm
there?
gonna, no, it would stop, I'm gonna say about 6 feet from the end. This is a guest room right here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a window here, and it kind of stops right by the window.
Okay, so it would go kind of out
Yeah,
here and
and then stop there, yeah.
about there or
Yeah,
something?
right,
Okay.
yeah, exactly,
All right.
yeah.
And did you say there will be a door from the house?
Yeah,
going to-
there's a, I know, this drawing is a little funny. There's a door.
Right about here?
Yep, right there.
And there will
Kinda-
be now, too?
Yeah,
Or-
and there is a door, there's another door that goes into the office.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really use it, but it's a full door,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's like
Okay.
half.
And then there'll be, you said steps going out to the front yard, or?
The steps would be, oh. Yeah, they'd be coming straight out
Oh,
here,
those
not up
steps.
on the side, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
Okay.
great,
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry.
I have one more question.
What was the name of the neighbors to the right of you?
Bill and Linda Crofwell?
Could you spell it?
Sure. CROFWELL. Bill and Linda.
Okay. So none of your neighbors had any objection to it that you, okay, thank you.
And I believe they all received the mailing too, because a couple people had said, oh, I got the mailing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I have no other
Mhm.
questions.
Mr. Mullen, you have another question?
So is this deck, are you going to remove the current deck or add to the current deck?
That's a tricky question
I
because your
can
builder
call-
isn't here.
I can call the
That's
builder. I
okay.
mean, it needs, I can't remember if he said
You
It
save as
needs
much of the
work.
deck as you can.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
So it's going to incorporate the two
Yeah.
decks.
yeah.
How old is the existing deck?
Not that old.
Not that old?
Well, it
Oh,
was,
that's
it
true, it
was,
was 2002, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's 13 years old. Yeah. About 12, I guess, about 12, yeah.
Do you have any more questions, Mr. Mullen? Or are you thinking of more
I
questions?
have no more questions, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Daba? No?
No other questions?
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say in support of your application?
No, just that if you need any more information that I couldn't answer, I can get it.
Well, that's okay. The
Okay.
the problem we have there is it's outside of the hearing process.
Oh,
and so,
okay, all right.
That may be a little bit difficult. but
Okay,
let's-
all right,
Let's
okay,
see where we
fair,
go.
yep, okay.
So let's see, is there anybody here this evening who'd like to speak in favor of Mr. and Mrs. Gianni's application for variance or who may have a question of Mrs. Diani. Okay, and the record indicates there's no such person here. Is there anybody here who would like to speak in opposition to this application for variance? So there's no such person here. So if you have nothing else to add, and you probably should quit while you're ahead, the board will take up Mr. Mullen's procedural issue and see if we can vote on this application this evening. I should just ask you one question. That's if you did receive the variance, do you intend to build this deck sometime this fall, or are you going to do it in the spring?
We had hoped to do it in the fall, but I guess I'd have to ask, the builder if he has time to do it, because we're later than we had expected to get all the paperwork in. Is there a difference, or?
No.
No,
It's just,
okay.
really, the difference is if you get your variance, even though everyone has assented to the variance,
Yeah,
there's still a 20-day appeal period,
okay,
before which time
Okay.
your builder could pull a permit.
okay.
So you're probably talking first week in November.
November, right,
And
okay,
so it just depends on what kind of weather we have
Okay.
and whatever. And if you had a builder in the street, we'd probably try to crank out the variance a little faster than our normal time, which is a couple of weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, depending on the
If it,
issues.
if it were to be approved, would it be okay to do it in like April, or,
Yeah, you can
Is
execute the
there-
variance within a year.
okay,
You have to start construction within a year.
okay,
Depending on whether November is temperate or not, the builder may be able
Right.
to do some footings. Maybe you can do the footings while the decision is awaiting the 20-day appeal period. Like, that's up to Mr. Prondak as to how
Okay.
far he'll let you go. He wouldn't let you build the deck.
Right.
You'd be building it at your own risk, but digging some holes in the ground and pouring cement in there may,
okay.
he'll try to cooperate. But whatever Mr. Prondak says in that regard is up to you. So,
Okay, thank you.
okay, so let's see where we go with this. Mr. Mullen, do you want to address the procedural issue first?
Yeah, so we're in deliberations now?
If you want. I think we are, unless you want to discuss the
I
procedural.
mean, you're designing the deck. I want to talk about the case.
You want to talk about what?
The case.
The case?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, this is matter 1933. It was heard in May of 2002 when a variance was granted.
That's what the application
Is
says.
this an amendment to that variance?
No, I think it's a new,
It's a brand-new variance?
I think it's a new variance.
And, well, here's the reason why I asked John, is because, does that supersede the old variance then?
Yes. To the extent that the deck, the parameters of the deck are more than were granted in 2002, May of 2002, and the extent to which it further encroaches on the lot line, it does. But I don't want to get involved incorporating evidence at the first hearing, because I don't actually know what was said at that first hearing.
Yeah, so, okay, so what I'd like to propose then is that it be a new variance superseding the old. Do you see what we're saying? So you have a variance for the current deck, because the current deck doesn't comply with the rear lot line either, and that's why you were here for 13 or so years ago. And I just want to be clear that we address the old variance because the dimensions of the new deck are different than the old deck. And we ought to be clear about what we're saying about the old variance.
Right, I think the application that we have is seeking a new variance, and I wrote
okay.
the ad as if it were a new
So we'll
variance.
treat this as
Not as an
such. We'll treat this as such. Okay. Do you want me to speak to the matter as well? or-
I'd be delighted.
I think it's a terrific improvement and very similar to the kinds of relief that this board typically grants for homeowners seeking to improve their properties for reasonable reasons. It's been approved by the neighbors and not objected to by the neighbors. It's been well presented, easily to understand, and I intend to support the variance,
Thank you, Mr. Mullin.
so long as it supersedes the old variance.
Yes. Mr. Daba, do you want to be heard on Mr. Mullen's procedural issue first, or why don't you and then
Well,
address
okay,
the merits?
I will.
I wanna be
The-
sure
on the
that everyone's
On the
on board.
procedural issue. So by superseding, does that mean that we also, and do we have the authority to make a declaration basically declaring that the prior variance is no longer in effect?
Well, I think we do, because
Yeah.
that's why I asked the
That's what,
question of
that's
whether it's...
really what we'd have to do.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah, not just
The old variance is no more.
no longer in effect, and this is a brand-new variance?
Yes. That's what we're doing.
Okay. Because this variance, the house hasn't changed, it's just the deck. So it's the new variance off the same house as the old variance was, I presume, right? The house has not changed
No.
at all? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Right.
We're in agreed. We're agreed.
Yeah, and the only point with that, I'm sorry, that would just have to be effective upon the completion of the new improvement. You know?
I think that's right.
Because there'll be a little bit of a delay. Not on the issuance of the variance.
See, this is what
A
happens.
small detail.
When you get a lot of lawyers together, we're picking nits here. But I think
enough
it's,
to do all day long. I was thinking about this hearing.
well, if you were thinking about this hearing all day long, then this is the most expensive hearing in the history of the Board of Appeals sometimes. But I do think that Mr. Mullen is right. We want to have the clean record as to what you're getting. And so we are indeed voting you a new variance so that you can build this new deck. And I think Mr. Mullen is right that on completion of the variance, when you get your final approval by the building commissioner, we'll put in the decision that the old variance is superseded and is extinguished.
Okay.
Or words to that effect.
Okay.
Maybe some fancier words to that effect. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Mr.?
No, I agree with Mr. Mullen on the merits as well. The affected neighbors were all in favor of it, and it does seem to be an improvement. It brings the deck 2 feet closer. It does extend
Right.
that nonconformity further, but I would agree and vote to approve the variance.
Okay. My view is that I agree with my colleagues. I'd like to start out by saying I think you did a wonderful job presenting this application for a variance. This was the first hearing. I think you've appeared and presented your own views, and it's not easy. If you're at the third hearing, you could see what happened in the first and second hearing, but this is probably new to you. And I think you did a wonderful job. I think the gods are against you in a sense when you're building, when your builder was not able to make it because of mechanical difficulties and put you on the spot. But I think while we asked a lot of picayune questions, I think you answered them very well. And that's what lawyers do, so
It's okay.
forgive us. But I think the application was well presented. I think it's good for your house. It's good, certainly good for your family. It's certainly an improvement to the neighbors like it. They all assent to the variance. I think the deviation from the lot line, while it's not de minimis,
Yeah.
is certainly, in my mind, is inconsequential. So I'm delighted to vote for this application for a variance. So all those in favor of granting this variance application with the usual conditions, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So there's your vote, 3-0, you get the variance. What we'll do is we'll prepare the decision. You talk with the builder about whether you want to try to get this in before the snow falls. If he has any questions as to what can be done and cannot be done, have him talk with Mr.
Yeah,
Prondak.
and he's talked to him before, so
Right.
he
And so
knows him.
Make sure you record your variance.
Okay.
The builder will probably do that for you. You have to record it in order to have it effective. So you'll get a certified copy on the 21st or 22nd day when the building permit issues, and just record that and put yourself in the trusty hands of the builder. So if you have any questions as you go along here, speak to Mrs. Fitzgerald, or
Okay,
have your ability to speak with Mr. Prondak, who's usually very, very cooperative.
yep,
Okay?
yep, he's
So,
been great. yeah.
Congratulations
Great,
on your
thank you.
variance. Thank you for coming
I
this
appreciate it
evening.
a lot.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Mr. Mullen is going to write this decision. Thank you, Mr. Mullen.
Ginny would have had that done in half the time.
I think she, we would have had it done in half the time if you didn't ask all those questions. But I think that clarified the record, and I do think we should procedurally clear up what that other variance is.
So Mary, how do you cross-reference this with 1933? Like if I was a property owner and I came to your office and said, you know, I want to look at the records of 29 Governors Road, is that how they're filed?
They're filed by address and by name.
Both?
Yeah, so that one I'll make it to the excise,
Oh,
one for the address, one for home one.
it's not computerized?
No,
Wow.
but I'm seeing it.
We're telling the whole town that now. Whole town knows now. It's on television.
All Mr. Mullen's trying to do is get you on TV, Mary. That's what he's trying to do, which you don't want to do. You should consult with counsel before you answer any of these questions.
I'm interested, John, you know that.
Ms. Oldfield, do you want to come on up and make yourself comfortable? Well, I'll do the preliminaries while you're setting up. Our second hearing of the evening is the 7:45 hearing, which we're conducting at 8 o'clock, and this is the application of Thayer Nursery. It's dated September 13th, 2016, seeking a special permit pursuant to Section 9C of the Milton zoning bylaw. Thayer Nursery is proposing to have an annual holiday boutique, or I should say have a continuation of the annual holiday boutique, on the first Sunday in December, which is December 4th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., located at the nursery grounds at 270 Hillside Street in Milton. The applicant was granted a limited exception special permit to conduct a holiday boutique on December 6th last year, 2015. The nursery is located, this says in a Residence A district. Is it a Residence A or double A?
Day.
A, okay. So my name is John Leonard. I'm Chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me tonight, to my immediate left is Board Member Ted Daber, and to my immediate right is Board Member Jeffrey Mullen. We have the advertisement, which I've just read into the record. We have the application that's been filed by the applicant. It's filed on September 13th, 2016, and it describes the nature of the holiday boutique, which they intend to continue. I think it's been going for 14 to 15 years. Ms. Oldfield is here. She'll probably describe that for us. Talk about the hours and the items that are going to be sold there, and the provisions for police and fire, for no parking signs and all of that. So we thank Ms. Oldfield for her application. And we also have a copy of the decision that was entered in this matter on November 17th, 2015, last year. The rules of the board are going to be just as they were for the first hearing. We'll hear from the applicant. We'll hear from people who have questions of the applicant. We'll listen to people who want to speak in support of the application, who have questions, and then we'll hear from anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to this application for a special permit. Since the advertisement was printed up, we have received 3 letters from, I believe they're all neighbors, and so maybe not abutters, but neighbors. The first letter, which I'll summarize, is an email. It's sent Saturday, October 15, 2016, to Mrs. Fitzgerald, and it's from Ellen Rogers at 428 Hillside Street in Milton. She writes in hope that the special permit will be granted for the holiday boutique. She says it's a family tradition for those who live in the neighborhood, as well as to the town on a wider basis. The things are very organized there. They support many of the local artisans who present their goods at the holiday boutique. She thanks us for reading her note, and she looks forward to this being an annual event. So we thank Mrs. Rogers for her, excuse me, her comments. We have a letter, an email rather, dated, well, again, it's October 15th, Saturday. This is from Donna Swanson, S-W-A-N-S-O-N, of 303 Hillside Street in Milton. She writes, she lives in the neighborhood of Thayer Nursery, and she's been to their holiday event every year since she's been living in this neighborhood. She says that Thayer Nursery is an excellent establishment in our neighborhood, and she is thrilled that they're having the event. So she thanks us for our consideration, and we thank Mrs. Swanson for her letter. We have a third email. This is October 17th from Karen A. Loring. Excuse me. I don't see an address here for Ms. Loring, but she gives her email address, and I'm not going to read that into the record. So Karen writes, she's writing to support the Thayer Holiday Boutique. I think events like this, especially hosted by local businesses, really set Milton apart and keeps the community cohesive. Her family has loved this event in the past. Usually her children spend an hour there running around while the adults shop. She says it's a lovely, safe venue. They couldn't be happier to live near Thayer Nursery. Since the time that her children were very small, she's always thought of Thayer Nursery as a gathering space for our neighborhood and the local community. Thayer is such a well-run, organized and clean family business, and she thanks us for her consideration. So we'll have all of those three letters in support of the application. So Ms. Oldfield, welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
Thanks.
We're
for having
delighted
me.
to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Maggie Oldfield, and I currently reside at 237 Hillside Street. I'm a 47-year resident of Milton, and I also represent my Precinct 9 neighborhood at town meeting. 13 years ago, when my daughter Chandler was 2 and my son George was not quite 1, I wanted to take a picture for my Christmas card. So as a working mom with limited time, I wanted to stay local and have a venue that was fun for the kids. So everyone always has commented to us that the nursery is sort of like going back in time and going up into Vermont. So we came up with the idea of hosting a community event that families of all ages could make part of their Christmas custom. So the Holiday Boutique has been part of the Milton tradition for almost 13 years. We provide a venue for local talented craftspeople that don't have a brick and mortar storefront to showcase their creations. And the age of our artisans have ranged from 8 to 80. So at each table is an individual who has put a lot of energy and passion into their work. Celebrations like this is a great way to bring the community together. Thayer Nursery is more than just a horticultural farm or a landscaping company. It really is the hub for our neighborhood, and it is a place for our community to come together. And we are so fortunate to have the opportunity to meet and personally connect with so many creative people who live in Milton. And as you recall, last year you issued us a one-day permit, so now we're back. And because we know your time is valuable, we're asking you now to permanently include this event and possibly other events like this into our permit. We want to reassure you that protecting our neighborhood is always our first priority. We own about 8.5 acres and 4 houses. We will not degrade the neighborhood because we would be causing great financial harm to ourselves. Because we live in the neighborhood and we are raising our children here, ages 5 to 15, retaining the safety and the special character of our neighborhood is always our primary concern. And if it ceases to be so, then my mother is there to quickly remind us. We also want to reassure you that we will not be adding any additional noise for our events. In theory, any additional noise generated by this type of event would be minimal and would be shouts of fun and laughter. Outdoor events are held during the day, during regular business hours. And realistically speaking, if one is aggrieved by such noise, they are not without immediate remedy. Like everyone else in town, they can call the police, and the police have vast knowledge and experience in determining what is considered reasonable noise, and they will determine if there's actually a violation. We are all protected by the nuisance law, in which the standard is not to be unreasonably loud, and it's determined by the police and the others living in our neighborhood. And calling the police is more of a direct remedy to solving a problem than going to every citizen speak, expressing your dissatisfaction with the process. We personally have great respect for and work extremely well with the Milton Police Department. In fact, we request a police detail for these types of events, and actually several days before, the police post no parking signs so as to not limit access, especially for emergency vehicles. Under Mass General Law, you as well also set the standard for what is reasonable, and you determine reasonableness as to what the normal practices are in similar situation or at a similar location, or what has been established as a precedent. I believe the precedent of other craft fairs and open houses has already been accepted as a part of Milton's daily life, and many of the artisans who attend our holiday boutique also take part in the other fairs in town, such as the ones held at Milton Art Center, Fuller Village, St. Agatha's, and even the Milton Garden Club's Green Sale, to name the few. I am still a little confused as to why I need to get a yearly permit, because last year when I emailed Prondak requesting copies of the other permits issued for these types of events, he sent me an email and said that the Town of Milton Inspectional Services does not require, nor does it issue permits, specifically craft or holiday fairs or farmers markets. That he states the town did not require me to get a permit for my fair, that I presented to the town a list of products that were intended to be sold at the event, and he responded by telling me what could not be sold. He said that the nursery is the only entity in the town of Milton that has a standing court order, which places restrictions on retail sales. He said Thayer Nursery is the only entity that was told via his letter that certain products could not be offered for sale at the holiday fair. And therefore, in his opinion, there is no reason for the town to conduct a review of any other similar event by any other entity at that time. And he stated that Thayer Nursery was never told it could not hold its fair. So I'm confused, because if I was told that I could never hold my fair, then why did we have to come before you last year so you could issue us a one-day permit, and why do I need to be here in front of you again asking for the permit? Unfortunately, the building inspector has never applied reasonableness to Thayer Nursery. And there are so many other questions that have been raised through this whole entire process. But I could also argue that you should amend our permit to include certain events, because we meet statutory requirements and we are protected by Mass General Law, specifically 40A Section 3, which states no zoning ordinance or bylaw should regulate or restrict or require a special permit for the use of land for the primary purpose of horticulture and floriculture. I could also argue that ancillary products and services are allowed under 40A Section 3, so as long as we meet percentage requirements. And I could even argue, like we did last year, that according to Mass Law Memo 1005 titled Agritourism should be applied to events like this. But I don't think you guys really want to hear that and go down that road. And so basically, I have opportunity envy. I'm asking you to apply the standard of reasonableness to my request and to amend our permit so we can enjoy the same opportunities as others in town. The precedent has already been set. We understand there is a balance between operating a business and being a good neighbor. We are not doing anything intentionally to harm our neighborhood. We are beyond clean, as noted in every site visit that has ever been performed. We have been overly accommodating to our abutters, and most importantly, we have the right to be there. At some point, it would be very helpful if the town of Milton made a determination or a declaration as to what our protected rights are. The town should endorse our agriculture as defined in Section 128, and further define it with input from local nursery owners, townspeople, from the Department of Agriculture, and from the Farm Bureau. And this may answer and put to rest the many, many questions that people still have, and it may help minimize all of our exposure to future litigation. We're asking you to please amend our permit to include events like the Holiday Boutique and to let the process work. And if the Hillside Neighborhood Association, which is a collection of everyone in our neighborhood, not just one or two abutters, but if the HNA believes that certain aspects of the permit is in need of tweaking in the future, then it can be tweaked. Each year, we strive to improve our business and the overall customer experience. So we respectfully ask you to give it a try, and please amend our permit.
I know you're not here with counsel tonight.
No.
We don't have any permit to amend. The permit that was issued to you in 2015 has expired. You have an application here. That application seeks an annual boutique for December 4th, 2016, and it describes the type of activities that you want to go on. To me, without going back into the 2015 application for special permit, this seems reasonably consistent with what you were doing last year.
It's exactly the
Yeah.
same.
And you're also making sure the police are going to be there to protect driveways from being blocked, and that people will be safe going in and out of the premises. And that's what the application requests, and it doesn't request anything else. And I let you speak liberally. We're not here to discuss the history of Thayer Nursery. The town, your legal rights are going to be determined by the 8 or 10 or 12 pieces of litigation you have pending against the town, and the litigation that the town has against you. When I say you, I mean Thayer Nursery, and the injunctions that judges have issued against Thayer Nursery. That's not before us here, and it's nothing that, it has to be worked out in the courts. I heard what you said, that somehow you want to have the Hillside Neighborhood Association being involved in tweaking your special permits. They have no jurisdiction to do that, and whether in law or in fact, and we have no intention of allowing neighborhood groups to issue or amend special permits which are in the exclusive jurisdiction of the Board of Appeals. And I think you know that. But that having been said, I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate the specificity of your application, which I think is very helpful. Let me see if any of my colleagues have any questions. Mr. Mullen, do you have any questions?
How did it go last year?
It went perfectly well, just as it always has for the past 13 years.
So last year, I think, was the first year that we gave you this specific permit, and it really stemmed out of the building commissioner issuing an order that you can't sell arts, clothing, ceramics, jewelry, housewares, candles, soaps, and carvings. So we permitted you to sell those because we found that it was reasonable and customary to sell those in a holiday environment. That was really the justification. So we gave you that one-day special permit, subject to conditions. I had argued at the time, remember it well, overruled terribly by my colleagues to my right, that we make this a one-day annual permit. And that's not quite what you've asked, but we did talk about that last year. So, and I'm not sure that's in front of us, actually. I think you've asked for a one-day permit like you had last year. So you said it went well. Are you familiar with the conditions that are in the 2015 permit?
Yep, I have it signed here.
Do you have any objections to those?
No. I do want to say I submitted an original request to Prondak, and he was the one who
It's
suggested.
the building commissioner,
Correct.
Prondak, if you don't mind, please.
Yes, yeah, and he suggested that it should be made annual, so I actually withdrew that original one, and the request at the top was as he specified me to say, was an amendment to the special permit dated November 17, 2015.
Yeah, I think John's right, though. I'm looking at the ad. It looks like you've asked for a one-day permit for December 14, 2016. And let me just make sure that I understand what you've said, though. The last year's went well, and you don't have any trouble with the 2015 conditions, which were the subject, I believe, of, we had 2 hearings on that.
I think we did.
Yeah,
We did,
and it went okay.
yeah,
And were there any complaints?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Mr. Deba, please.
Those were basically the questions I had, and I also noted, you know, the what was advertised and what was applied for, the one hearing date in December, which was,
Yeah.
which I think is what before.
If you do look at my application though, because the town does not have an application, I had to create my own.
Yeah.
And it was based on the liquor license, and I had to sort of create it. So if you actually do look at it, the date just says the first Sunday in December. There is no date because for the past 14 years, we've held it every single first Sunday in December. So it doesn't specifically say the date of this year, which is December 7th. And it does say date of previous sales, it has been held annually. And they're up at the top, it says respectfully request permission to conduct the annual holiday boutique. So my intent with this application, and I'm not sure how it was written for the ad, but the intent of the application that I wrote was for it to be every single year. And as I recall, what you had stated last year was you were hoping that the planning board was going to straighten it all out so we wouldn't be back here. And I hope you recall that I said that they were not doing that because the planning board was just issuing us a landscaping permit, and they didn't want to step on the toes of the ZBA and our nursery permit. So our nursery permit is actually a separate entity than the landscaping permit.
Well, the issue is, the reason why the notice is important to us is it's the expectation of people who are observing this. And, you know, issuing a permit that is going to automatically renew on an annual basis is very different than having the good fortune of participating in a hearing at the end of every October, which is where we are now. That's really the issue.
That's right. Well, I don't read it as Mrs. Oldfield does, but if that was her intent, it wasn't advertised. And I think we were fairly clear at the last special permit on this particular type of holiday boutique fair as to how the board felt. So I consider this a request for a new special permit for an annual holiday boutique on Sunday,
December 4th.
December 4th.
Yeah, yeah.
Ted, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, my inclination on that, I mean, I have the same problem with what was advertised and kind of the application is, I guess it could be a little bit clearer as to what was being sought, if that's what you wanted. But I have no problem granting the single day
Right.
application as we did last year. I mean,
But
that's
let's
not-
see if we have some comments from neighbors. Or
Okay.
see who's here to speak on this. So have you finished your presentation, Ms. Oldfield?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see, is there anyone here who either has questions of, you can stay right up there if you'd like, and if you be comfortable, if you want to say something else. Is there anybody present who wishes to ask questions of Ms. Oldfield or who otherwise wishes to speak in support of this application? So the record indicates there's no such person present. Is there anybody here who wishes to oppose this application for a special permit for an annual holiday boutique on December 4th, 2016 at their nursery. And the record indicates that there's no such person present. So do you have anything else you'd like to add? Otherwise, we'll decide this special permit application.
So just, again, moving forward, every time that we need or would like to have an event at the nursery, it is in your thinking that we have to come forth and request permission.
Well, when you talk about events at the, first of all, let me say this. You speak very broadly when you talk about events at the nursery. Your view of what the Dover Amendment says and our view differ. Your view differs with justices of the Superior Court who have issued injunctions against their nursery.
For landscaping, correct?
Yes, so that you've got at least 10 cases, maybe it's 8 to 10 cases, appeals, other cases, pending to get legal determinations as to what you can do and what you cannot do at the nursery.
For landscaping, correct.
For landscaping and maybe for other things, I think, maybe for this, I don't know. But we granted this application last year because the building inspector specifically found that there were certain things that were taking place that were not allowed under the Dover Amendment, like arts and crafts and having artisans there has nothing to do with the Dover Amendment. So we granted the special permit. I get the sense of the board that we're prepared to do it again. But when you say events at the nursery, that's overly broad. Here we know exactly what you're going to do, and we're voting exactly this. If you want to have some type of Oktoberfest at the nursery.
Yes, which we have had in the past. So that's where I'm
Then
just
you-
trying to, so we don't step on anyone's toes. I just want to
We're
have
not,
a
yeah, but we
clear.
can't address that at the
Yeah.
present time. That's not before us. You've got to take that up with Mr. Prondak. Mr. Prondak will make a determination as to whether that is permissible or whether you need a special permit. If he says it's permissible, that's his call. But I think you're going to have some neighbors who may disagree with Mr. Prondak on that and bring a lawsuit against Mr. Prondak seeking to force you to get a special permit. But that's something that I'm guessing at. I don't know that as a fact. So that what we're going to do here is proceed on a case-by-case basis so that there'll be a clear record as what's being allowed and what's not being allowed. So that's why when you talk about events and in your presentation, you also mentioned in the abstract certain other types of, I'll call it events, but you didn't specify, which to me meant they may be gardening events, they may be a whole panoply of events that people who are in the nursery business may conduct regularly at nurseries. And it's up to you to discuss those things with Mr. Prondak, and if you have difficulty doing that, you've had counsel at almost every one of the hearings you've ever had before the Board of Appeals. Have your lawyer talk with Mr. Prondak. Have somebody else talk with him if you can't talk with him, because he's our first determiner of what the bylaw calls for and what's required and what's not required. If you disagree with him, you come to us. If neighbors disagree with Mr. Prondak, then they bring an action, an enforcement action. So I think that's the first line of attack as to what, in the line of inquiry as to what you can lawfully do and what you can't lawfully do. And it's not our function here to start deciding all of that in the abstract. It's just not before us. Here we're talking about this holiday boutique. It was successful last year. And I think it's going to be successful this year, and every neighbor who's written to the board is enthusiastic about it. So, and I do note that some Hillside Street neighbors who have appeared in the past on this type of application, your holiday fair, don't appear to be present tonight. So maybe they think it's a good thing for the community and the children in the community as well. So, Mr. Mullen, do you want to be heard? Okay, Mr. Daber,
Heard,
other than on the application?
you mean
The
before we
spec-
close the Are we in deliberations
Yes,
now?
we have-
We didn't
Okay.
say that.
Well,
You always say it, you always say it.
Why do I s-
Close it, and we're going to go to deliberation.
we asked if anybody
say
was
it this
present. You would think I have to,
I think you should say it.
I won't say it. We asked if anyone was speaking in opposition to it. There was no opposition. We asked Ms. Oldfield if she had anything to say. She did say something. Do you want me to say we're in deliberations
I
now?
think you should.
Okay, we're in deliberations
I'm
now.
going to vote to support the annual permit. I think it's a good event for the town. I think it's been well-run. It's been reasonably documented. And I'm going to enthusiastically support it.
Okay. Mr. Deba.
I support the application for the Holiday Boutique on December 4th this year.
Okay.
Subject to the same conditions that we...
Yeah, subject to the same conditions.
conditions.
I agree. I intend to vote for this application for a special permit. I thank you for coming, Ms. Oldfield. I thank you for your application. I hope you have a great holiday boutique. I think the neighbors are going to be thrilled, and I wish you all the best
Thank you.
of luck.
I appreciate it.
We'll try to crank this out as quickly as we can.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Bye-bye. So, all those in favor? I think, did everyone say yes?
Yes.
Aye.
Please say aye.
Yes.
Okay, 3-0. Okay, I'll write this one.
10 minutes on the Ginny scale, I would have.
Okay, we're going to call to order our third and last hearing of the evening. This is the 8 o'clock hearing at 8:30. Is Mrs. Mark Lally and Susan Moscato?
I'm Susie, yeah.
You're Susie?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to present the application, or?
I think my architects sort of do it.
Okay, well, come on up here.
I'll
and-
echo in or whatever.
Sure, and
Thank you.
who's the third member of your party there?
Oh, Lauren. Lauren works with Paul Sperling of Sperling
And why
Thomas.
don't you come on up here as well?
She
I want
does
to
a-
see your face on
Yeah,
TV.
she does a lot of the grunt work, so she should be here.
Okay, well, that's really important. Let me take care of some formalities, and then we'll get involved. In this particular application, Mark Lally and Susan Moscato seeking a special permit from the Milton zoning bylaw. They're proposing to demo an existing L-shaped deck at the rear of their property and to construct a new portion, 21 feet by 33 feet by 2.5 story deck.
It's not a deck.
Facility, is it?
Not a deck.
Is it an addition?
Yeah, it's-
Addition.
In addition to the house, okay. The zoning bylaw requires that for reconstruction of pre-existing non-conforming structures, a special permit has to be issued by the Board of Appeals. The existing structure is 3 feet 4 inches from the rear lot line, the left rear lot line. And the proposed addition will be 17.5 feet from the left rear lot line when 30 feet are required under the bylaw. The property is in a AA zoning district. And in support of the application, we have the actual application. We have a summary of the plans that are attached to the application. We have the denial letter from Mr. Prondak dated 9/26/2016. We have a series of photographs of the existing structure. We have a plot plan of the land by Hoyt Land Surveying dated August 22nd, 2016, showing the subject property and the existing facilities and the proposed addition. And we have some, it looks like they're building plans prepared by Sperling Thomas of Natick, Massachusetts. They're dated 8/23/2016. And they're in 7 sheets, and they show the subject property, various elevations, various views of the property, front, rear, sides, and they also show the interior of the existing first floor, the existing second floor, the proposed first floor, and the proposed second floor. So we thank the applicant for providing all of this detailed information. So who's going to be making the presentation?
I will. I'll speak and answer questions. My name is Paul Sperling. I am the owner of Home Projects Inc., Sperling Thomas. I've had the pleasure of working in Milton for over 10 years, and I've been in front of this board many a times.
Well, welcome back to the Board of Appeals.
I mean, not that I don't want to be in front of
Well,
them.
I guess my question is, have you had luck?
Always.
Always, okay,
Always.
well, then you're hitting home runs.
There
Well,
you go.
We're delighted to hear from you. Why don't you tell us and the folks out there in TV land what this is all about and what the project is and how
Yeah,
it's
what
going
we
to...
have, what we have is we have 2 federal-style facades. They've been built 1810, 1802. The 1802 faces the main street, the 1810 faces the driveway. And there's a section on the building that is, which is in the non-conformed area to the setbacks, is a group of structures that are barely standing up. And they're being used as storage, laundry room, part of a kitchen, family room. They have no foundation, and there's no insulation to them. So in order to try to keep, from the historic standpoint, which is what we do, that's our field is historic preservation in design, is to try to reconfigure properly so we keep within the findings of Milton and the historic structures, of just reconfiguring the amount of square footage. The property itself, there's approximately 815.36 square feet that is in today's rules of setback violation. And what we're proposing is to change that and only be within 233 square feet. Hence why we're asking for a 12.5 difference in the setback. So we tried every angle we could to redesign the structure without hurting the authenticity of the historic structure and to make it work, hence why you see your floor plans. And in order to do that, we've conformed everywhere else on the side yard, front yard, on all the requirements there. So we're asking for that 12.5 difference. I can't change the size of the building any more than I have right now. We reviewed this and spent a lot of time redesigning and trying to find everything that conforms as best we can. And this is our best shot of what we have right now. The, the new area, or the old area that is being removed, it consisted of 940 square feet on a face, as far as a footprint. The total amount that we're removing off this structure is 1,180, and we're adding 1,386. It's a difference of 206 square feet from what we're taking off and putting back on. But in doing so, as we said before, we are trying to stay away from the rear yard setback. We have gone in front of conservation. They've reviewed everything, and they've approved everything.
Have you been before any other boards?
We don't need to go in front of any other boards,
Okay,
except for Joe.
yes. Okay. All right,
So I can answer any questions you have concerning.
sure. These dwellings are obviously pre-existing, non-conforming
Right.
structures. I think zoning came into Milton in, was it 1934? That's to the best of my, is that comport with your recollection, so that is it fair to say that when all is said and done, if you get the permit that you're looking for, that the additions that you're putting in and the portions that you remove, are they going to be consistent with this color scheme and with the style and all of that?
Correct,
And-
yes. She has on the property itself, you see by the plot plan, she does have an existing barn. And that was built in about 1840. That's what we call a Greek Revival barn. And in doing so, the addition that you see that is going to supersede what was existing is also to marry that. So they kind of marry the image across the driveway.
The window,
Yep.
there's a beautiful window. This is not like, I know the technical stuff's just homeowner stuff, the person was writing the check, but there was just like this beautiful, triangular window in the barn that will be reflected. We're putting that in the portion that is facing the barn in the new addition, but it will also be viewable from the street, from Canton Ave. And it sits, we sit around, 1580 sits on one side of Carberry Lane, which is all newer construction, and then all the beautiful estates. We are not that, we're kind of carved out of the old sort of Bartol family estate. But we are, it is a house that you see when you drive up and down Canton Avenue. We have not lived even in the United States for several years. We just moved back, and we bought the house, and we always wanted to restore it, and new work that had to be done, which is why we contacted Paul. We wanted it to have a street view, which made sense for that neighborhood.
And so you actually acquired the property on May 31st.
I did.
Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations. That's
It's been a long summer.
terrific. I guess it has been, and it'll be.
It'll be a long,
When do you intend to do the renovation work?
Well, I think that she would like to, when I was contacted at the end of July, when I was just going to Paris, she made the comment that she would like to break ground this fall.
I want to break ground by winter.
And we had to really go into second gear and design this up and go through all the construction drawings. So we have full working drawings being submitted to the town as soon as this vote is decided, if it's decided. The other part of this too, if the board can understand, from a historic standpoint, we lose so many historic structures everywhere. And our field, we try to save them. We've been involved in removing structures and having them rebuilt in different towns and so on and so forth. So in a case like this, in this particular home, it's critical that we find that perfect marriage to make this house stay there for the next 300 years. Otherwise, somebody will come along sooner or later. If it doesn't conform well, they will tear it down. So we're trying to save it at the same time.
Now, the photographs are interesting. I feel a little bit like a snoop. I'd love to see some interior
Oh,
photographs.
no,
Oh, yeah, you
what we're doing right now, and just have a minute, since we're the last ones, I can take a bit of your time, is we are actually, the front part of the house, the 1802, my husband and I, we have been started to restore it. So every window in that house is not being replaced. We have sent it out through Old Bostonian to be restored. It takes a lot of extra work, takes a little extra cash. We've had every interior door sent out, stripped of 200 years of paint, and put back on. So this isn't sort of my first rodeo. I grew up in a house in Easton, Massachusetts, down near Brockton. My mother restored a house from 1831. So I grew up with that. And my husband and I restored a house from the early 1900s in Chicago and Evanston, Illinois, which I did, by the way, with 3 little kids. And I lived out of one room. So when they say, well, if we break ground, you're going to be boarded up. I'm like, this isn't my first rodeo. I get it. I'm not afraid of that. We bought the house not in spite of what it is, but because of what it is.
And you
But
got
the-
fabulous location.
Oh, I know,
and
I love it.
It's,
Beautiful location.
it's a great project. You're a woman of great courage. Let's leave it at that. And obviously, you've chosen the right people to be working with. Have you done historic? Could you mention 2 or 3 of the historic dwellings you may have worked on in Milton?
Oh, Milton, let me see. God, I was everywhere in Milton.
You're right up the street, basically from the Eustace Estate, and that's being transformed.
I am, and then, I don't know if you know Mary here, but she is, how many generations does your family go back behind us?
To Augustus Hemingway, who bought the property initially back in around 1860s.
Wow.
And prior to that, the house was built in 1802, and so, yes, so we're very familiar with Eustace's, very familiar with the Gate Lodge. In fact, in Easton, Frederick Law Olmsted did the Gate Lodge, the original Gate Lodge that the Eustace's architect, and I can't remember his name, last name is Emerson, modeled his Gate Lodge on. So I've spent a lot of time researching the neighborhood and how it all fits together, and it's a very inspiring place.
It's an exciting place
It really
this
is.
time.
It
Yes.
really is.
Okay.
To answer your question, I forget the name of the church. There's been so many, and I'm everywhere, so I have other people in my office that
Sure.
know a lot more of the street addresses. But the church on 138, is it? I mean, on, is it Randolph Ave?
Randolph Ave, yes.
Saint something?
Michael's.
St. Michael's. We renovated the rectory by maintaining its authenticity. When they moved it, they actually lifted it up and moved it to where it is now. And we had that renovation.
It was in the area that became a driveway. It was moved out, and then
Right.
it was a driveway.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was right next to the church.
And when the new pastor came in, or excuse my pastor or whoever, yeah, they contacted us to renovate in keeping with the architecture on the inside as well as the outside. We've done that on Brook Street. And let me give you an idea, when you use the word historic, everything we do is what we call period.
Okay.
It's a period design, so every time period is very critical to maintaining that. So on Brook Street, we did a change to a house on Brook Street. I think it's
66,
I'm sorry?
166, I think it is.
I don't remember the actual street address. But Cliff Road, Alden,
Sounds like fascinating work, but it's
It's-
also very detailed, isn't it? And
It's
there's
tweaking.
a lot of tweaking and
it's tweaking. It's
historical.
just trying to maintain the
study.
authenticity of the existing, whether it's 1920, 1938, 1940. We don't pay attention too much to the 1950s, but from that point back, the earliest house we've ever worked on, not in this particular case, was actually a first period, which is 1696.
And where was
So-
it? Where was that house?
That was actually in Amesbury, and then it was moved to Dover. And then we were trying to get that rebuilt in Natick.
We're also using our contractors, also a specialist in post and beam houses as well, so.
And the configuration you see on our plot plan is because of the engineering of post and beam, which we're very in tune to, especially federal, the actual federal period, we can only marry the roofs correctly by a certain way. Otherwise, we lose the authenticity of the main federals. So all these designs that you're seeing in a sketch was well-engineered before we got to this spot where we are now.
Sure, and you have to work very closely with the contractors to make
Oh, yeah.
sure that
Yep.
they're conforming with the plans and
Yep.
your designs. It's fascinating stuff.
There's nothing that we could save out of the existing chicken coop, laundry room, et cetera. There's
So we
nothing.
can save the brick, the wall, the stone wall
Yeah,
underneath.
so stone.
Well, we hope.
But there's nothing internally that historically, since that is my forte, there's nothing there.
And I think it's true, but I should ask you the question, that the improvements and the renovations that you intend to make to the house are indeed substantially set forth on the drawings that you've presented to us.
Sure.
Is that-
Yep, they
that's
are.
true? Okay, so that's what we're approving, and that's what Mr. Prondak
Exactly.
will enforce. Okay, Mr. Mullen?
Is it your testimony that the configuration that we see here is directly related to the historic restoration?
No. The area in the front is part of the two federals.
No, the back. I'm interested in the back. I'm
No,
interested
the
in
back area
variance.
where you see the enclosed porch and you see the area to be removed, that back area there, there's nothing historically of value to that house.
I'm interested in your comment about the post and beam construction and the shown configuration and the nature of the historic renovation. I thought you were drawing a tie between those two. In other words, you couldn't build the additions in a different configuration because you would lose the historic significance of the building. Is that accurate?
Exterior and interior, correct. Correct.
So if you were to respect the setback, it wouldn't be historically correct?
It wouldn't conform to the interior of the house and the exterior, we would project too far out. So from the street, and everything is guided by line of sight when you're on the main street on Canton Ave, is when you're looking down that street from the street itself in the driveway, you're seeing what you've always seen. That's the key. We're not protruding further out.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Is there not a bylaw in the town about demolishing historic structures? Have we dealt with that before?
No, we're not demolishing the historic part of the
I see.
structure. Right.
It does have to do with age? There's not an age, buildings older than,
I already went to the building department and talked to Jay, also, and he reviewed everything, and he said there's no concern here from their end.
Okay.
Only if I was tearing down the whole house, then you would go in front of all the other committees.
okay. I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Daber?
So there's no town or state or anything restrictions on the work. It's just to preserve it because should be preserved for historic, but not because you're restricted by any municipal or other authority.
If the current owner, Susie, wishes to demolish the house completely and build a modern house, then she's welcome to file for a demo permit, wait the 6 months, and then crush it.
Okay, all right.
And there are towns, my town and other towns, that we have bylaws that are a year and a half. The more we can get for those, the better, because that gives us a chance to figure it out, save it somehow. So those bylaws are good.
Okay. So you said the two fronts you had talked about, the 1802 and 1810, they're not the area that's being removed
Or being affected,
or
that's
being
correct.
affected. Just out of curiosity,
No,
can
it's a
I?
confusing house.
Yeah, that's.
I live there.
Which would they be on the? I mean, so
How do you,
I have the plot plan.
correct? If you're looking at the plot plan.
Yep.
Where it says existing dwelling,
Yep. And Canton Avenue is on my left.
Canton Ave is in front of you.
Yeah, this way.
Okay, I put it that way. Okay, all right, yep.
So
Bottom.
on Canton Ave, you're gonna look straight forward, you're gonna see a federal building. They're pretty standard, 18-1 by 32-7. They all have a certain number. There's a time period to it. It's called what we call a one-room deep house. So when you walk in the door, the room to your left, front to back. Room to your right, front to back. So it's called a one-room deep.
Okay.
Then in 1810, it looks like the owner was growing his family. And it looks like he found another federal somewhere in Milton or some other town. He disassembled it and married it to the existing federal and added the same thing again, one room deep, one room deep. So those areas aren't being affected at all. But they don't work with the rest of the house.
So are you saying the 1810 is that the second floor then, or is that
No,
what you're saying?
1810 is the part that's in the driveway.
The second
Okay.
floor would have been their 1802. When he says one room back, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Those two bedrooms up top would have been part of the 1802 as well.
That's correct.
Two bedrooms, two places in the bottom, entrance hall, and you have these two bedrooms.
Do you
And
want-
then 1810 happens. And how you know, I think it's really interesting how 1810 happens is when you go to top of the stairs, there's this curved wall, which is sort of classic Greek revival. And that Paul has put in, by the way, in the plans, in the new part where we have the powder room, there's a curved wall. The master bath have the curved wall. I mean, really going the extra mile here to take the new space and really marry it to what is historic. These bits and bobs were added to the back. The ceiling height is 6 feet in the back of the house. In the middle of the kitchen, it goes down like this. The floor, I'm fine with the sloping floors, the whole house slopes, it's fine. But in the kitchen, it's almost a well. It's almost a well. And when our insurance person got there, I'll be honest with you, he almost didn't want to insure the back of the house. When he saw the back of the house, he was a little creeped out. Because there are stairs coming from the outside into the family room, which was made, the chicken coop was covered up and made into a family room. There are stairs that are this tall. You know, there's no insulation. I'm sure it was an economic imperative at the time who lived there. They needed to add on something, a growing family, needed to add it on quick, what they could afford. There wasn't any zoning, there wasn't any great design sense. but it's complete, not only is it unworkable for any modern family, it's almost disrespectful to the front of the house.
It also doesn't conform to any of the zoning today. She couldn't touch any of it because it's in the setback.
Okay. So, and what did the Conservation Commission have to approve, or what did they?
Well, it's the same problem we have right now with why we're in front of the zoning board, is we have a brook back there.
Okay.
It's a dry brook. And again, we're only 25 feet from the brook's edge. And that's what you call a no-touch zone.
We're actually moving away from the brook.
So now we're gonna be 40 feet away from the brook.
Right now, we're 25 feet, and the new structure will be 40 feet away.
Right, so it helps out conservation immensely that we're moving away from the area where they're concerned about. So, and it's the same thing here, like being in front of your board, is we're moving away from the back of the property and trying to get as conformed as we can.
Okay. And one other question. It looks like there aren't necessarily, I don't know, maybe there are too many neighbors that are that close by. But did you speak with any?
Well, we send out a butter letters, and all the neighborhoods know everything that's going on. They're enthusiastic about it.
Okay, everyone's
Everyone's on board.
everyone on board, okay.
I mean, I'm gonna work with Mary, who, has that property behind us as well, because we will, when we move back from that brook, there's going to be land that we will, we're never can put hardscape on, we're not putting a patio on or anything like that, but that we can plant, native, non-invasive species, so that will help, because once you free up land, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, from what I understand, talking to conservationists, birds can come over and they can put whatever they want, and the thing that they usually put is something that's invasive, and so we're working on that as well, so.
Great, I have no other questions.
Okay, I have no other questions. Thank you for the presentation. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
Nope, I'm
Okay.
here for any questions.
Let's see if there's anybody present who has any questions of Mr. Sperling or the applicant. And there's no such person present. Is there anybody who would like to speak in support of the application for a special permit? Yes, Miss Noble, is it? Yes, come on up. Why don't you come on up? Welcome to the Board of Appeals. And we'll slide that right in front of you.
My name is Mary Bart.
Just sit down, Miss Noble, please.
Oops. My name is Mary Bartol Noble. I am delighted to support this project.
Where do you live, Miss Noble?
I live at Fuller Village, but I spend most of my time abutting the property because I'm working on the part of the parcel, the Hemingway parcel there, that is in my possession now.
Okay.
And it's in your possession because I'm still following. I have pretty much Mary's entire family tree, which is fascinating, by the way. It's like a history of Milton, if not a history of Massachusetts, to be honest with you. But you lived on that property, you grew up on that property.
I grew up on a different parcel on that property. It was divided up back, it's been divided up over time, but it was, we did an MDC taking, a friendly taking in 1995, and then we did a final subdivision within the family in 2010. And so the parcel that I own is the abutting parcel.
Okay.
And her niece lives up in the house that she restored, that house, which was the house that's been in the family. In fact, her niece is 6th generation that's been in that house. And these families, by the way, which I thought was interesting, is that, I mean, I want to be respectful, but they all married one another, like the Eustaces, married the Bartels, and all this property came about not from buying, but because everyone got married to one another. So that in and of itself is like a fascinating story. I mean, if you're into that stuff.
Ms. Noble, what's the technical address of the parcel, the abutting parcel that you own?
1514 Canton Avenue.
1514. Oh, great. And so you're delighted to support the project?
I am.
And do you want to tell us very briefly why?
We have lovely new neighbors. They're doing something to improve the look of the backside. And I like the idea that it's being moved away from the intermittent stream, Bolster Brook.
Great. Well, thank you very, very much for coming. We appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard either in support or in opposition to this application for special permit? And the record indicates there's no such person present. So unless you have anything further to add, we'll and the evidence portion of this hearing. And to suit my colleague, Mr. Mullen, we will go into deliberations
Oh, he
on
said
this
it.
matter. I did say it.
You did good.
Jeffrey, do you want to be heard?
I think the application is terrific and a great improvement and well justified, and I'm going to vote to support it.
Mr. Neighbor?
I agree. What a great improvement to the property and so much care being taken to preserve it and everything. It's wonderful. And I would wholeheartedly support it as well.
Well, I agree with my colleagues. I think the application has been very well presented. I'm not an architect or a land planner, but
Now, we're a design firm. I want to make sure that goes on record, that we're a design firm. We're a little different.
okay. Well, your design it looks to me to be wonderful. I think
Thanks.
you deserve a lot of praise. I think this is a fabulous opportunity for Milton and for this portion of Canton Avenue, and I think that the Susie Moscato, if I can refer to you as
that's
such,
right,
and Mark Lally.
He's the one writing the checks.
Well, good for you. I
So
think
that's why I thought here he's at work.
you're people of great courage, and this is not an easy transformation, but I think it's going to be absolutely sensational. We have the Eustace Estate going in there, and they're doing beautiful work. I was thrilled to vote for that particular application. I just hope that, as a wish, that any future development up in this area is respectful and in keeping with this type of
I think having your board
development.
review this properly and giving it the go-ahead will help save other buildings in town too, which is critical.
That's,
Yeah.
well, that's my hope, and so I'm going to enthusiastically support this application with the usual conditions. I understand your need for timely action from the Board of Appeals.
There's no insulation in the back of the house. It's going to be a long winter either way.
So,
She's a fighter, though.
Well-
She'll put the wood stove out in the driveway
Oh,
and
I
stand in
love
front of it.
well, you probably have fireplaces that are 8 feet
Yeah.
wide.
We have
No.
No,
a bunch,
you
but
don't.
no, they're very small. What do they call them?
It's a Rumford fireplace,
Rumford
the federal
fires.
period, which is our first period in the Americas, from the standpoint of colonial period or first period. They're very
So
small
they're very small,
fireplaces.
they're not deep.
Okay,
And two will
They
work
throw
just
more
fine.
heat off.
Fine,
okay.
So it's like putting a toaster on.
yeah.
So it's just, to me, it sounds exciting, so we'll do our very best to see if we can crank this special
I
permit out.
appreciate it.
So that you can get started. As I tell everybody, once we've voted the special permit, it takes 20 days after the recording for you to technically pull a building permit, but you can work with Mr. Prondak. A lot of times he allows people under these circumstances at their own risk, so to speak, but
Now, the owner is
to do some
very in
prep,
tune.
to do some prep work and to do some other work that sets up your construction work, because I know time is short. So we'll do our very best. So all those in favor of granting this application for special permit?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank
on
you
this
very
special
Thank you very
permit.
much.
Thank you for your hearing.
I've
Beautiful
enjoyed
work.
being, I've only been in Milton a couple months, I've enjoyed it. I mean,
Oh,
it's,
great. We're happy
really-
to have
everyone
you
has
here.
been so helpful.
You know, we meet once or twice a week. You can come down, or
I
month,
know this
come
is
down and say
volunteer.
hello. And
I did take a little picture though, I once said to my husband, I go, it's like the Norman Rockwell picture, you know, of the town meeting, like these guys really meet and they're here and it's volunteer, so, anyway, thanks a lot, I appreciate it.
okay, congratulations. Thank you. Okay, we'll be adjourned for the evening.